Mr. Clerk, we are reporting out of closed session. We have two items. First item, 4.1, is the appointment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, first item of council reporting out of closed session. The motion is to receive the report, and that's it, actually, just to receive.
Thank you. Someone like to move that? Councillor Weiss, second, Councillor Kim. Comments, questions? Recorded vote?
Recorded vote has been requested for the first item of council reporting out of closed session. Councillor Gallo is absent. Councillor Gilliland? How do you vote, Councillor Gilliland? Councillor Gilliland votes yes. Councillor Weiss? Councillor Weiss votes yes. Councillor Kim? Councillor Kim votes yes. Mayor Maracus?
Yes.
Councillor Gartner? Councillor Gartner votes yes. And Councillor Thompson? Councillor Thompson votes yes. Motion carries.
Thank you. 4.2.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The motion for council reporting out of closed session, item number 2, is that the report be received and that confidential direction to staff be confirmed.
Councillor Thompson, seconder. Councillor Weiss. Comments, questions? Recorded vote?
Recorded vote has been requested for the second item of council reporting out of closed session. Councillor Kim, how do you vote? Councillor Kim votes yes. Councillor Gallo is absent. Councillor Weiss? Councillor Weiss votes yes. Councillor Gartner? Councillor Gartner votes yes. Councillor Gilliland? Councillor Gilliland votes yes. Mayor Maracus?
Yes.
And Councillor Thompson?
Yes.
Councillor Thompson votes yes. Motion carries.
Thank you. Confirming bylaw. Someone like to move that? Councillor Kim, seconder. Councillor Gilliland. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Gardner, Councillor Gilliland, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Mr. Clerk, time is 7:02. I'm going to call this council meeting to order. Town of Aurora acknowledges that the Anishinaabe lands on which we live and work are the traditional and treaty territory of the Chippewas of Regina Island, as well as many other nations whose presence here continues to this day. As the closest First Nation community to Aurora, we recognize the special relationship the Chippewas have with the lands and waters of this territory. They are the water protectors and environmental stewards of these lands, and as a municipality, we join them in these responsibilities. We further acknowledge that Aurora is part of the treaty lands of the Mississaugas and Chippewas recognized through Treaty Number 13, as well as the Williams Treaties of 1923. A shared understanding of the rich cultural heritage that has existed for centuries and how our collective past brought us to where we are today will help us walk together into a better future. Council, can I get a motion to approve the agenda? Councillor Thompson, Councillor Kim, comments, questions? Call the vote. That carries. Any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. No community presentations, no delegations, consent agenda. Would someone like to move that? 2 items on that. Councillor Thompson, second by Councillor Weiss. Any questions on those 2 items? Call a vote. That carries. Number 8, committee of the whole meeting report. So these are all committee items. Anyone want any items pulled? Councillor Gilliland?
Thank you. Can I have 8.8.1, please?
Councillor Gardner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 8, I want both of the traffic calming for, hold on, which one is it? Yes, it's 8.8.2.
8.2.2.
8. No, 8. 8.8.2. Thanks.
8.8. Oh, yeah.
Thank
Okay.
you.
8.8.2. Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Thompson?
8.8.3 Stone Road, just for a vote.
Just for a vote? Okay. Thank you. Any others? I get a motion to approve the remaining items minus 8.8.1, 8.8.2, and 8.8.3. Counselor Weiss, seconder. Counselor Kim. Call the vote. That carries. Move to 8.8.1. This one's the community planning permit system. Counselor Gillen, you pulled this. Did you want to move the recommendation? Thank you. Seconder, Counselor Thompson. Counselor Gillen, go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Ramuno. Just for clarity, and I wasn't here at the committee of the whole, simply what we're asking today with this report is just to move the community planning permit process forward with the community and stakeholders to develop a plan in that area. Is that correct?
Mr. Ramuno.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yeah, that's correct. I mean, the purpose of the report is really an information report, just to let council know that we are initiating, the process where we retain a consultant, and we're going to start our public engagement to include the community on the actual design of a community permit system for this area of town. Yes.
Counselor.
Thank you. And I just had a couple questions about that and some of the things that would entail, because I do think it's a really good program. And I think this allows us to move forward with some projects that we find is a really great vision for the community. When it comes to the design aspect and the architecture of that area, is there any kind of specific input that would be a part of that criteria? And I understand it is very subjective, and I'm just wondering, I just want to understand how that's going to be handled.
Mr. Ramuno.
Certainly, through you, Mr. Mayor. So yeah, I mean, the intent of the community planning permit system, and I think I mentioned this last week, it's a relatively new tool that really combines, 3 application processes into one and streamlines the approvals process. It's essentially a zoning, site plan, and a variance process into one. So it's really an urban design exercise, you can say, for that strip that we've identified. And so the goal is, as we, seek input from the public and the land property owners, et cetera, we'll come up with a design, a plan, which will allow the owners of those properties to actually, provided they come in with an application that complies exactly to the ultimate product that we come up with at the end of this process, they can essentially go straight to a building permit. Because again, the permit system, is a 45-day process. So it's really streamlined compared to the zoning, which can take a number of months, et cetera.
Counselor.
Thank you. And just a quick question and reflection of that input. Do we plan on, through Mr. Mayor, Mr. Ramuno, posting and Engage Aurora, a survey to engage the public beyond that area, or is this subjective just to that area?
Mr.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, I think later on, I think in February, we'll work on our a webpage to let everybody know that we're embarking on this process. And as part of our public engagement, we'll work with, our staff and corporate comm to ensure that we get the message out community wide. And we'll seek input from, all of our residents as part of the public consultation as we move forward with the design exercise.
Counselor.
Thank you. I just quick comment. I do think that this is a great process that we're going through, and it does allow us the opportunity to set in stone a bit of the vision for our community looking down the road, and certainly putting this in place will allow us to expedite that. Just some questions about moving forward as far as their delegated authority associated with in the urban design guidelines. And so I just want to ensure, depending on what the council of the day is, who the mayor of the day is, who the planning department of the day is, because this is something that's projected long-term, not short-term, because who knows who's going to be sitting in these chairs in 10, 15 years from now. I just want to ensure that this information is passed by council's desk, just like any site plan application, but at least gives us some sort of alert notification so we can submit our comments to ensure that we are aligning the guidelines with the urban design guidelines with the intent of the CPP program. Is that something that is intended to happen? Is that something that we can note today that we as a council, perhaps, I hope my council colleagues would still want to have that as part of that process? It doesn't necessarily need to be formalized out in a public planning, because that's what we're trying to avoid is streamlining, but just ensuring that that trigger is there.
Mr. Ramuno.
Certainly, through you, Mr. Mayor, and I think I understand that question. So, once we complete this design exercise and we arrive at a community planning permit system for this section of this historic downtown core, being Young and Wellington. I think your question is, at a future date when one of those property owners actually comes in with an actual application. Yes, I mean, considering this is one of our historic downtown core, a few years from now, when the first application comes in, we will certainly inform council of the application when it comes in.
Councillor?
Perfect. Thank you. I just want to ensure that that process is in place and there's a trigger. And we do, as council, do receive applications now. It's not something that hasn't happened when they are following the rules in a site plan application. All I'm simply asking the staff is if we are going to be creating a new procedure, that perhaps it's flagged differently in our inboxes to say, hey, we have a new site plan application. It's meeting all these requirements for council to review. Nobody's perfect. No site plan's perfect. And when we're dealing with subjective things like urban design guidelines and so forth, if 5 out of 7 people point out the same thing all on their own, then maybe there's perhaps a conversation to be had and some tweaks can be made. And it's really just protection of that area that we're talking about. So I'm glad to know that that is something that we can at least create a whole habit of process. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gardner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Murdock. But we would expect that block of the historic downtown, we would expect that would have a special design criteria to go with it. Thank you.
Mr. Romano?
Through Mr. Mayor, yeah, exactly. And as you know, a number of those structures also have designation bylaws. So there's that separate process that we would go through as well to inform the Heritage Advisory Committee. But certainly, once it's going to be a very unique process considering the area of town, and we've been working on this. I think the goal is part of our promenade official plan and downtown revitalization plan. This is sort of the next step to realizing some redevelopment in this area of town.
Councillor?
Thank you very much. A follow up on page 2 of 4. The priorities of the project will be to develop conditions that are required to be met in any new development, such as affordable housing opportunities. So what does that mean exactly? Are we going to require affordable housing, or it's just, well, it says develop conditions that are required to be met. So are we saying that there will have to be affordable housing there?
Mr. Romano?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, again, that's something that we're going to work through as part of this process this year, and we'll have to work through that as we engage the public and the property owners. So again, yes, when we end up with a final document, we may have conditions where we want to see a portion of those future units being affordable in some fashion. So we would have to codify that in this final document. But again, that's obviously one of the considerations, because again, council, we've approved our housing action plan and we've got certain policies in our official plan. So that's going to be one criteria as well.
Councillor?
Thank you. A follow up. I'm Councillor Weiss may have addressed this last time, but we do have in our OP that we do have a condition of affordable housing that has to be met. So will we be at least enforcing that? Even if a developer doesn't want to do that, will we be enforcing that?
Mr. Romano?
Through Mr. Mayor, yeah, again, it's something we're going to have to work out. And I think, we've heard this comment, and it comes up regularly at our planning meetings as well. We do have that affordable housing target in our official plan. It's in the regional plan as well. The difficulty or the challenge there is, the price thresholds and whether they can actually be met by new developments, because we've gone through this in our housing action plan. Those price thresholds for rent or for home ownership, they're a little higher in Aurora and above sort of the CMHC rate. So again, it's always a challenge, but it's something that we're going to have to work through as part of this process.
Counselor?
Yes, and we know that developers don't want to do affordable housing. So I hope that we can meet that challenge. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Weiss?
Yeah, just a quick one. And it came up with a conversation with a resident when I was talking about the boundaries. The boundaries of this is everything inside the boundary, and does it on, or everything bordering the boundary. So for instance, on Victoria Street, is it the west side as well as the east side? Well, there's nothing on the east side, but on the east side as well as the west, or on Church Street, or in Victoria?
Mr. Bruno?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So yes, I'm just pulling up the one of the attachments. So, our geographic boundary is, identified as sort of northern limit being Wellington, south being Church, east Victoria, west Temperance. So it is right now, it's everything within that boundary.
Okay.
Having said that, as part of this process, depending on the comments we receive, there could be some adjustments to this boundary, but that's something we'd have to work out. But we've established this boundary. It was always part of the original boundary that we established as part of our promenade streetscape, as part of that infrastructure improvement works and streetscape improvement works. So yeah, as part of the study area, this is the boundary, everything within that.
Within.
And, we'll see what sort of comments we get moving forward, whether it's, expanded slightly or not. Again, there may be thought, we've already had some discussions with our consultant about, do we want to actually expand the boundary from Wellington just slightly north to include, the properties immediately north, kitty corner to Yonge and Wellington.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something that, again, we'll deal with as we start our public engagement.
Counselor?
Thanks. That's it.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? I just want to bring up something about, Councilor Gardner, you brought up affordable housing. Mr. Romano, I just want to clarify this for everyone. Mr. Romano, what's the average cost per square foot for housing?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So that's the, if we're talking about, mid-rise buildings, permanent buildings, we're hearing the cost is, $1,200 to $1,400 a square foot to construct all in.
$1,200 to $1,400
Yeah.
a square foot.
Yeah.
So if we wanted something to fall within the $500,000 range, how many square feet would we get?
That's a challenge. You're looking at 400 to 500 square feet, right? That's a challenge, if that.
Well, if it's 1,200 a square foot.
Or
Yeah,
400
so you're
square
400.
feet.
So if we want to build 400 square feet units, we can do that. But at the end of the day, and I think most people are starting to realize, is that unless we have intervention from the federal, provincial government, even from regional government, being able to provide tax dollars to subsidize, to bring it below market value, you're never going to achieve that target price of $550,000. The cost of the units are going to be market driven. And the only way to bring it below that is for us to use tax dollars to bring it below. It can be done, but we need to have an honest conversation about that's what we're going to do. I'll call the vote. That carries. 8.8.2. Councillor Gardner, you pulled this one. Do you want to move it?
No, thank you.
No. Someone want to move it? Councillor Thompson, second. Councillor Gilliland. Go ahead, Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is in my ward, and I've been over there, Timberline. Part of the problem is that it happens in Kennedy too. People come off Bathurst at a high speed, and then they enter the residential neighborhoods going quickly again. And it didn't meet the warrants, but there definitely is a problem there. Is it, I'm not sure who to ask, but is it possible that when we get permission to use the red light cameras that are now called something else, that we would be able to put them on problematic streets like this? Or Oh,
Alex. Welcome, Alex.
welcome, Alex.
Our
Through you, Mr. Mayor. In order to put speed cameras or speed type devices, the street has to be designated as a community safety zone. And there is specific criteria in the Highway Traffic Act as to what streets can be designated community safety zones. So it would be dependent if it meets that criteria.
Counselor.
It definitely would meet that criteria. And our pilot project now is around community safety zones. Okay, well, I don't know. I know it doesn't meet the warrants, and it doesn't meet the warrants by 0.3 by quite a lot, but I just want to say that I have found also that it is a problem on Timberline. Thank you.
Counselor Thompson.
Thank you. I think for myself, it wasn't just a question of it not meeting the warrants, but it also was, we had referred this to the Transportation Traffic Safety Advisory Committee, and they too were also not in favor of moving forward with it. And in general, in terms of what the report said. So, I also leaned on the committee's recommendation as well, based on my decision.
Counselor Gilliland.
Thank you. I read the report as well, and I did notice the recommendation from the Active Transportation Committee, who also had suggested they weren't in favor of that. I know I've had some problematic streets coming off Bathurst. I understand what you're saying, although I do look at the Highland Gate little gateway there that does allow some of that traffic to slow down. So perhaps that's part of the reason why I would be in favor of receive at this point. I understand it's in your ward. Putting automatic speed cameras, unless it's in a community safety zone, I just can't see myself supporting that. Sorry, Councillor Gardner.
Counselor Gardner, did you want to speak again? Second time, or you did? Okay, go
Thank
ahead.
you to Councillor Thompson. I with a lot of difficulty, I found the minutes to that meeting, and but I couldn't find the actual meeting online, Mr. Clerk, on YouTube. But one of the recommendations, although they weren't in favor, they were in favor of reducing the speed limit. So see, those are comments we don't get here. So I'm wondering, Mr. Clerk, and we had this issue at the Traffic Safety Advisory Committee and Active Transportation. Is it not possible, if the committee makes specific comments on something, that we could know what their comments were?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, minutes are supposed to be or are designated in the minutes block to be without note or comment. So it makes it difficult. We provide high level discussion topics. I'd be happy to send, if you ask me, send me an email, I'd be happy to send you the YouTube of the video or of the meeting, so you can see what exactly was said by members.
Thank you. Well, thank you. And I would like to know actually how to find it myself. But that they did say that they would be open to reducing the speed limit, but that isn't something that we would know because it's not part of the report. And I think when there are specific comments that are kind of direction, although committees can't give direction to staff, that they should be included in the report. And I hope that can happen in the future. Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no other comments, questions, call the vote. That carries. 8.8.3, Councillor Thompson. Move it. Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Weiss. Any comments? Call the vote. You didn't push your button. That carries. 9.1. Pavement rehabilitation strategy for Murdock Avenue. Someone want to move this? It's just received for information. Counselor Kim, seconder. Counselor Gilliland, thank you. Any comments, questions on this one? Counselor Gardner, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If possible, I would like to know when I first joined council and for many years thereafter, when a street, maybe to Mr. Monroe, when a street got an assessment of a 65% pavement condition, then we targeted that street to be rehabilitated in some way, depending upon the underground infrastructure. So when did we change it to that it should be a 70% overall the town rating? I don't remember this being discussed at council.
Mr. Romero?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't recall when when or if it was changed. I can double check and get back to council on that. But that index, I mean, is what staff used as a review road improvement. So in this case, the surrounding roads, the McLeod and a few other roads surrounding them were included for rehab work in 2025. It's not just mill and overlay of the pavement, but there's also water pipes and sewer pipes that need replacement. This actual street in Murdock that's in question does have an assessment of 64, but it's slated for pavement, shave and pave in 2027, but no underground work. So it's in better condition than the surrounding roads that are actually part of the capital project coming up this year. So I understand the residents wanted it done at the same time, but Murdock, as it was assessed, is due for a mill and overlay in 2027.
Council.
Thank you, Mr. Rumino. And it was a 64 in 2023. So by the time it gets to 2027, I'm going to assume it's in worse condition. This is, to me, this is a service level change, and I understand why we have to do it. We need to watch our money. We have a 33.5 million deficit in our repair and replacement plan, but the expectation of the residents are different. And I don't really know how as a council we can get the message out. But I understand why these residents came forward, and I'm sorry we can't help them. Thank you.
Councilor Thompson.
Thank you. Through you to Mr. Ramuno. While I appreciate the report touches upon the condition of the pavement as an assessment factor, I guess I'm more interested to understand the costs associated. Murdock terminates at Gilbank and McLeod, which we are doing. Is there not any savings by doing Murdock at the same time as Gilbank and McLeod, as opposed to in 2027 sending a new crew out just to do that small stretch of road?
Mr. Romero.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. A good question, but again, staff do take that into consideration because again, there are other streets that are probably at a lower assessment than Murdock is. And again, it's really only ready for a mill and overlay again in 2027. So I think they, as part of the assessment, they've got to draw the line, somewhere with respect to how many projects we do every year. And it's basically assessed on, which roads are in worse condition. And the ones slated, around McLeod, again, they're a complete road rehab work. So it's the underground services as well. And again, when we do Murdock in 2027, it'll probably be grouped into another contract with a number of other roads that require mill and overlay, probably in the surrounding area as well. So it'll be part of an overall project where we can get some cost savings as well. It won't be just the one standalone street that we go with the tender for.
Councilor.
Okay, but I'm just going to ask the same question, maybe in a different way. If we were to decide tonight to do Murdock with Gilbank and McLeod, would there be any cost savings as opposed to waiting till 2027?
Mr. Romano.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't have an answer for you now, and I'm not sure how far along we are with the McLeod project. So, yeah, I don't have an answer, but something we can look into.
Yes.
Well, I appreciate that, they make that assessment. I think that's a valuable piece of information to have. I mean, as Councillor Gardner alluded to, I mean, we are looking for ways to address the deficit in our replacement accounts. And so if there was some savings, maybe it's worthwhile taking a look at it tonight. You're not sure, but perhaps you can get back to us on that.
I was just going to add, I do believe Mr. Romano mentioned that staff do take that into account when they're doing the full assessment. So
Good information for us to have.
yeah, no, absolutely. Councillor Skillet.
Thank you. Thanks for the comments. Just wanted to throw out there that I have asked the planning department the exact same questions, but offline, well before this came to council. Actually had this conversation back in 2022, if you can believe. So they did do their due diligence and do some extra investigation. Obviously, they've done some work for 2023. And at that time, they had a lot of their funds for other parts of the community. I know in Town Park, for instance, as well, there's also some streets there that have to wait as well. And there's always going to be some streets that need some work and somebody's got to wait. And unfortunately, this is that little part. And I've tried to advocate. I've asked the exact same questions. But as far as what I understood is that all the dollars and cents were all allocated towards the ones that were in the worst shape possible. And this just happens to be one of those streets that are in that pecking order, unfortunately. However, in 2027, it's already there. We know it's going to come in the budget. It's something that we know that has to be done. I think for the peace of mind through Mr. Merritt and Mr. Ramuno, I think some of the residents were just wanting to make sure that even though they're having this mill and overlay now for the surrounding streets, if we were coming back in 2027, is that going to put damage to the newly freshly repaired asphalt or laid asphalt in and around that area? That was some of their concern. Could you give the public some sort of ease knowing that that is not going to be damaged as a result of the machinery coming in 2 years later?
Mr. Romano.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, again, our staff do their best to work with our contractors to make sure there isn't any damage to surrounding roads, but occasionally what will happen, there may be some pavement blending with the adjacent streets. And if there is damage done, obviously, we'll ensure that the contractor repairs any damage done to local streets.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And yes, I wish we had an endless purse, but we could fix every street all at once. This is not an isolated incident. I've had some other streets up on the northern part of my ward as well, who's been asking vehemently for their street to be done. And I've had them out to do their assessment as well. And unfortunately, there's a pecking order for everything. But you're right. I wish that there was a way that we could set the expectation differently. And I do wish that we could do it all at once. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Call the vote. Carries. New business. Councillor Weiss. Councillor Gilliland. Nothing. Councillor Gardner. New business.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Not exactly new business, but perhaps you'll bear with me. Yesterday was Holocaust Remembrance Day. A heartbreaking day for many people. 5 million people who weren't Jewish were murdered in the Holocaust, and 6 million people who were Jewish were murdered in the Holocaust. And personally, my husband's mother and father, each of them was the only surviving person in their family, which is just horrific, was horrific and continued to be horrific as a child of a Holocaust survivor. Anyway, I just like to make sure that we mark that day. I believe we put some yellow lights. Thank you very much. And perhaps next year, Mr. Mayor, you could do proclamation, and then as a lot of municipalities are, and then we could also have it on our town page, town website.
Absolutely. And Councillor, just let you know, we did do proclamation. I think it was 2 years ago, and usually it's when the organization asked for the proclamation, and so that's why it wasn't done last year. Not because we didn't want to, it's just it didn't get sent to our attention. But maybe we can ensure that we do it regardless of whether they reach out to us or not. So I
Thank you.
agree it should be done on a yearly basis. So
Thank you. As a municipality, I would just like that we do it without
Absolutely.
having to be asked.
absolutely,
Thank you very much.
Councilor Thompson. Go ahead.
Just as an FYI for members of council, I have asked Lake Simcoe to come and delegate with regards to some of the work they did in Aurora last year in 2024, specifically the restoration of Devlin Place. I know they've been in touch with the clerk. A date hasn't been set, but we're hoping that they'll come perhaps in March or April.
Thank you. Councilor Kim. Yep. Bylaws. Someone like to move the bylaws? Councilor Weiss, seconder. Councilor Thompson. Comments, questions? Call a vote. That carries. Confirming bylaw. Someone like to move that? Councilor Gardner, thank you. Councilor Kim, all those in favor? Opposed, that carries. Motion to adjourn. Councilor Gilliland, Councilor Weiss, all those in favor? Opposed, that carries. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.